Hi, I'm Ben Ferguson, and welcome to your AMAC Weekly News. First up, tweets by the president about the conditions in Baltimore have forced liberals to defend their broken cities. So now they're playing the race card to defend the horrific conditions in the cities that they run. More on that story in a moment. And also, the Supreme Court made a decision that gives the Trump administration and the American people a huge victory on border security. Yes, I'm talking about actual funding for the border wall, and I'll break down Trump's plan for you in just a moment. And finally, the first night of the second Democratic debate did not disappoint, with Democrats promising free everything. They also promised, quote, no mean tweets if they're elected to the White House. More on that story in a moment. And finally, a quick reminder, if you haven't joined AMAC or renewed your AMAC membership, do it now so you can continue to receive this new show and access to our amazing member benefits. You also get the AMAC magazine, and most importantly, AMAC represents you and almost 2 million other conservatives on Capitol Hill every day. So make sure you join or renew your membership right now. Your AMAC Weekly News starts right now. Before President Donald Trump even sent out the tweet that started the Baltimore controversy, which I'll show you in a minute, I want you to see what liberals were actually saying about the conditions of Baltimore. So let's start with the former mayor, who just 1 year ago literally complained on tape about the rats and dead animals on the streets of Baltimore. Take a look.
What the hell? We should just take all this down.
To target.
Ooh, you can smell the rats.
Under Baltimore's Violence Reduction Initiative.
Ooh, Jesus.
Just last week, we went with Mayor Pugh as she toured an East Baltimore neighborhood.
It's a new one. I've been down here 54 years. It's a new one.
Baltimore's Violence Reduction Initiative is about taking steps to rid communities of the cornerstones that contribute to crime.
Oh, my God, you can smell the dead animals.
That was not the only liberal complaining about the living conditions in Baltimore. Let's rewind back to Bernie Sanders when he decided to visit the district of Representative Elijah Cummings in 2015 when he was actually running for president. And he was shocked by what he saw. Take a listen to what Bernie Sanders had to say about Baltimore years before Donald Trump ever tweeted anything about it.
Anyone who took the walk that we took around this neighborhood would not think you're in a wealthy nation. You would think that you were in a third world country.
Now that you've heard what liberals had to say about Baltimore, I want you to take a look at the tweet by Donald Trump and tell me why liberals are now calling him and everyone that supports what he's saying about Baltimore automatically a racist. Donald Trump's tweet actually says pretty clearly exactly what the Democrats have been saying for years. He said, quote, Representative Elijah Cummings has been a brutal bully, shouting and screaming at great men and women of Border Patrol about conditions at the southern border, when actually his Baltimore district is far worse and more dangerous. His district is considered the worst in the USA. He continued to say in another tweet, as proven last week during a congressional tour, the border is clean, efficient, and well run, just very crowded. Now, Cummings' district is disgusting, rat and rodent-infested mess. If he spent more time in Baltimore, maybe he could help clean up this very dangerous and filthy place. Now, Bernie Sanders has already flipped his position, of course, on this issue so that he can attack Donald Trump as being a racist. And in typical media hypocrisy, he's getting away with it. Because these tweets called out the city for issues that it actually has, yet the media says, no, Donald Trump is a racist. Well, Baltimore residents are seeing it a different way. In fact, many of them have actually thanked Donald Trump, while the media members have been humiliated by claiming the president did this with racist intent. I'll give you a perfect example of one reporter who was making claims to try to make Donald Trump look bad. Well, they were on TV, and there was a beautiful rat that decided to make its debut right behind her. Take a look at this amazing video and the hypocrisy of the media.
We spoke with a lot of people today who call Sandtown home and are deeply offended by the president's comments. But they'll be the first to tell you that, yes, this area has its fair share of problems and continues to struggle today with crime and poverty. Now, we spoke with many people today who say the president should consider coming here to Baltimore, to the Sandtown area, and taking a look at things for himself. Coming up at 5, we have some more stats in the area, specifically when it comes to abandoned buildings like this one you're looking at here. That's at 5. But live for now in Sandtown, Maxine Stryker, Fox 45 News.
Now, current Baltimore Mayor Bernard Jack Young said on Monday that Donald Trump should, quote, send federal assistance to the troubled Maryland city instead of criticizing his management of it. There's just one problem with that, Mayor. We, the taxpayers, have already given you $66 million in federal grants this year alone. Now, this is what liberal leadership does. They take your hard-earned tax dollars, and you will see absolutely zero positive change in your own life, especially in Baltimore. This is why it's so important that we stand together at AMAC and fight for this type of government waste to stop going to cities like Baltimore, who waste your hard-earned money every single day. The United States Supreme Court gave the president a huge win on border security last week. The Supreme Court gave the Trump administration the green light to use $2.5 billion in funds from the Department of Defense to actually construct parts of a wall along the southern border. Tom Homan is a former acting ICE director, and he says this decision by the Supreme Court is a huge win for American security. Take a listen.
I think, first of all, it's a huge win for the president, but I honestly think it's a huge win for America. Look, every place, Neil, we've talked about it before, every place they build a border barrier, if you really look at the data, every place they build a border barrier, it has resulted in a decreased illegal immigration, decreased illegal drug flow. So this is a huge win for the American people. So I think the president's going to move quickly with both DOD and DHS to contract additional miles of new border wall in strategic locations across the southwest border.
This funding for the border wall projects was previously held up by lower liberal courts, but the court's 5 conservative justices gave the administration the green light to do their job and protect the American people. So now the Trump administration will begin working on the 4 contracts it has awarded using this Department of Defense money. Following the big announcement, the president tweeted out, "Wow, big victory on the wall. The United States Supreme Court overturns lower court injunction, allows southern border wall to proceed. Big win for border security and the rule of law." Look, the bottom line is every American should be proud and excited that finally we will be able to do what should have been done decades ago. Yes, this is just one big step towards restoring law and order at our southern border. But we cannot let this momentum stop, which is why AMAC continues to battle on your behalf in Washington to make sure that we are able to win these battles against the extreme left, who are not fighting for you, but instead illegal immigrants who refuse to respect our laws. The Democrat presidential candidates took the stage again for their second round of debates. And as expected, we heard a lot about things like Medicare for all, the evils of big corporations like Amazon, and how horrible the president of the United States of America, Donald Trump, really is. Now, as always, there were a bunch of promises made, but one of the strangest ones was when one candidate, Amy Klobuchar, promised, quote, no mean tweets. That's only if you elect her. Bernie Sanders also made it clear that he will promise to outlaw private insurance as president, making sure that you have no right to choose your insurance plan or really even the doctor that you go to. Now, there was also another highlight of the debate when Democrats decided to gang up and assault capitalism. That's right. They went after the, quote, big evil corporations. Senator Elizabeth Warren is a perfect example of just one of the candidates that decide to go after the hardworking people in the private sector and those that literally employ millions of Americans every day. She went so far as to claim, quote, they, referring to the corporations, have no loyalty or allegiance to America. Take a listen.
For decades, we have had a trade policy that has been written by giant multinational corporations to help giant multinational corporations. They have no loyalty to America. They have no patriotism.
And of course, it wouldn't be a debate without Democrats trying to claim they will give away free stuff. And apparently that will completely eliminate racism. Just listen to Warren's absurd plan that she says will actually make this happen.
How are you going to combat the rise of white supremacy?
We need to call out white supremacy for what it is, domestic terrorism, and it poses a threat to the United States of America. The way we do better is to fight back and show something better. So I have a plan, for example, on education that says we have to build a better education system for all our kids, but we've got to acknowledge what's happened on race.
Now, I got to call out Elizabeth Warren for her clear case of massive hypocrisy. In fact, she finished off the night complaining about the extremely high and evil cost of college. For the record, Elizabeth Warren was paid more than $400,000 to teach just one college class. Yet, she has the audacity to demand that college be paid for by the taxpayers, when she's the one getting rich off the system and then passes the buck on to the student. Now, it wouldn't be a Democratic debate this election season without at least one Democrat attempting to pander by speaking Spanish. Well, they took it even a step further this time. This time, you had one of the most unlikely candidates go on Twitter and change languages. That's right, good old Bernie Sanders decided to send out multiple tweets during the debate in Spanish. And the first one I translated for you, quote, "Every year, millions of people lose their health insurance. If you want security and freedom of choice in a healthcare system that will not bankrupt you, the answer is Medicare for everyone. Hashtag Dem Debate." If there's anything that I learned from the Democrat debates, it's this. We must make sure that these liberals never take back the White House, because if they do, they're literally going to bankrupt this country for our kids and grandkids with these socialist ideas. That's it for this edition of your AMAC Weekly News. Quick reminder, if you haven't joined AMAC or renewed your AMAC membership, do it now so you can continue to receive this new show and access to our amazing member benefits. You also get your AMAC magazine, and most importantly, AMAC represents you and almost 2 million other conservatives on Capitol Hill every day. So make sure you join or renew today. I'm Ben Ferguson, and I'll see you back next week for our next episode.